It's February 17th. I'm in Western Ohio and it's in the 60s and I could be outside, so why not? Recording this podcast outside. Those of you that watch it on YouTube can see that it still looks like winter, but it's actually spring. Uh, Climate change, global warming, what the heck? I don't know. We've got different weather patterns over here in Ohio. This is Gary Mitchell. This podcast is brought to you by Ignition from Inductive Automation. I write internationally. I have a column that appears every month in an Italian magazine. I don't speak Italian, but it's something like Automazione Oggi, which means automation today, I am told. And I get questions all the time, but at a specific request, they had an email newsletter going out a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, can we get a view from America about what this new President Trump means for manufacturing? I said, I can write a view, but to be honest, I really don't know. I don't know that anybody knows exactly what the new administration is going to do for manufacturing. So I'll just take a few minutes before I dive into another topic. But, we've had like 8 years of I'm going to get picked on for this, but the style of the last president was a little cooler, rational, that sort of thing. He could get fired up a little bit. But you never, at least I didn't, but I don't watch TV news like ever. But anyway, didn't really seem to like really get bombastic or anything. And now we have a totally different style. Not talking about substance, just style. And he wears his emotions on his sleeves. He'll explode at a moment's notice. He'll say all kinds of stuff. The last president used social media very effectively. This president even more effectively, at least Twitter. There's a publication from Silicon Valley I watch that their cartoon icon thing of President Trump shows him looking at the Twitter bird saying, "You're nothing without me, bird." Anyway, so yeah, it's a totally different style. He ran as a Republican, but he ran against Republicans. He ran against Democrats. He ran against the establishment. So everybody's curious, what's up. As far as manufacturing, he ran trying to. Every president builds a coalition, so no president is a singular thing. Every president is building a coalition, so it does different things for different people. One piece of this coalition are people from my area, Western Ohio, and on a little bit north and on west, where some of the really good manufacturing jobs, 30 years ago, you could get a job across the street down here a little ways at a place called Copeland Compressors, and you could the man could work, it was 30 years ago or more, earn a middle-class income all by himself, support a family of, a wife and 4 kids, and a middle-class lifestyle, and life was good. And that whole thing was countrywide, lasted about 20 years maximum. And then it went away. And it was really driven by economics as much as anything else. You can look at politics. People look at politics. I don't think every president comes in thinking they can do macroeconomic change, and they really don't do that much. Let's be honest. No matter what your politics, give it up. It's like macroeconomics just seem to drive things that presidents and Congresses and all those kind of peoples, they wish they control, but it's hard to control. So anyway, we had that passed, and now the jobs. I mean, where I live, Honda's all over. There are plants right now in this town of 17,000 people. There are over 350 manufacturing jobs that'll pay $15-ish an hour, 15 to 20, and tell me, in Western Ohio, you can live on that. You couldn't take that to a city like Chicago or the East Coast for sure, but around here, we can all live comfortably on that. And they're going begging. I mean, we have full employment for all intents and purposes because when people go to apply for the jobs, they can't pass the drug test. Okay, don't want people who are coming to work high on marijuana, and we've got a lot of heroin around here. So whatever it is, can't pass the drug test, they can't hire. We've got bad jobs going begging, but still there's this feeling like if only we could get better jobs like the old days and that sort of stuff. And it's a human thing. And so he picked up a lot of votes on that. So a lot of the policies, supposedly, or at least the discussion right now, has to do with what can I do to get American manufacturing jobs back. There's been a lot of press about shipping jobs overseas, but quite frankly, that offshoring thing kind of came and went. And companies have discovered that, oh, wait a minute, we didn't add all the costs of going offshore. We've got transportation costs and loss of intellectual property and insurances and risk and all kinds of stuff that go with going overseas. So it's a real mix. We live in a global economy. Most companies of any size are not American, really. They may be based here, but they're really global. And we've been discussing for the last 20 years at least that is a real advantage for a company to build close to where the market is. So there are going to be some jobs that go overseas rather than here and then exporting. And it depends on the type of product and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so we know that one thing that he wanted to do was kind of yell at CEOs and do things to bring manufacturing jobs back to America. He will discover, like all presidents discover, it's not as easy as issuing an executive order or just telling people. And I've studied this most of my life, and every president coming in has faced the same thing. Oh, I can do stuff. I'm president. I'll just write an order. Oh, nothing happens. What? And life in Washington, what can I say? So anyway, what I expect personally is a typical Republican agenda, reducing regulations to some point, reducing tax load. Well, maybe load is a pejorative word. I don't know. Reducing taxes on corporations, that sort of stuff. And they believe it's a valid economic theory that will increase manufacturing business and therefore increase manufacturing jobs. There are a dozen theories. Personally, I haven't seen any of them work yet. I hope I'm not too cynical on all that. But market forces. I'm a market person. Market forces just seem to always win out over that. So anyway, so when my friends from Europe and Asia write to me and say, "What do you think about this?" I expect a fairly traditional Republican agenda and a different style from the president, different style from Congress. We have a little bit of new leadership in Congress, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting 4 years. What the heck? And meanwhile, all of us manufacturing people, we're going to keep making stuff because people want to buy stuff. Hopefully, our designers design stuff that people want to use or can use. It's a benefit for the people. So it's an ecosystem, and that's what I expect to happen. I don't think it's going to be that big. If I were prognosticating, we've had an awful lot of economic growth that hasn't been very big, but it just keeps chugging along, chugging along, chugging along. And I believe that sometime in the next few years we'll face what economists call euphemistically a correction, and that'll probably happen. And then if it happens while Trump is president, the Democrats will blame him, and you know how that goes. That's just a game they play. But it's market forces at work, and so I expect that. But I'm not a stock advisor, so don't invest based on anything I say. Switching gears real quick on that, so for my European friends. But anyway, just went to the ARC forum. It's the 20th time I went down there, down in Orlando last week. It was more energy, more buzz, a bigger attendance than I've seen in half a dozen years probably. Really good, a lot of announcements, a lot of enthusiasm. I went to no sessions like the last 10 years. I haven't had time, but this time was even more packed with interviews and talking to people and networking and so on. It's fantastic. Few things are going on. There were a lot of security, so there were several companies there touting security and network security of various ways. Some people do anomaly detecting by sniffing the network. Some people go in and look at the PLC, and they can detect changes, some kind of change or something like that within the actual control system. So a number of things like that going on. And that was pretty cool. There were at least 5 companies like that. Check my blog posts. Thing I haven't blogged yet, but I will be shortly. A lot of questions. Probably the biggest buzz was around ExxonMobil, a little bit Lockheed Martin, not as much Lockheed this year, more ExxonMobil. Last year they made a big splash by saying we need to build an open DCS platform. We need to drive down the cost of implementing DCSs. And a little bit of a confusing message. There's like 2 messages. One is almost like I want an open system DCS so that I can plug anybody's I/O into anybody's control, or maybe everything is a service, and maybe I/O is a service, and the software to run the DCS is a service, and it's just up here, and the hardware is here. So I decouple hardware from software. I decoupled maybe even I/O from controller. Maybe I revert back to what one of my clients did back in the, when was that, early mid 90s. He defaulted everything to single loop controllers and just had a supervisory controller. It's actually distributed control system, not a DCS. I don't know. Maybe he was ahead of his time. But just trying to figure out what they're doing there. If they're really trying to drive hardware to commodity status, um, some people look at it as a lower total cost of ownership, so they don't really care about driving hardware to commodity and maybe even software to commodity to save the initial cost. It was more like in 5 years when I have to start upgrading, the upgrade cost killed me. So, of course, not everybody upgrades all the time, but we won't go there. So what can I do that I can add services and add things without breaking the bank? So I didn't get any interview with Don Bartusiak, the ExxonMobil guy. I did sit in on the Open Systems session on Thursday. It was well attended. I didn't count heads. Usually I count heads, but a lot of people stayed on Thursday, which is amazing. And there may have been 100 people in the room. I heard that another session going on about the same time was also well attended, and that was on IT/OT convergence. And I'm beginning to get tired of hearing this IT/OT convergence. We've been talking about that for 20 years or more. I can remember being the lowly automation sales guy going into a plant, and I talked to the IT people and the OT people, and big deal. They were just technology people, and maybe we need to start just thinking technology and get this. But anyway, people are still interested in how I get the business system and the automation systems to talk together. So that was going on, and that was interesting. The open systems one, that was an aside, back to open systems. I sat in the session. I didn't learn a lot. I took a bunch of notes, tweeted a bunch of stuff, but I don't know. Open systems are good. I'm a proponent of open systems. On the other hand, I've seen some of these kind of idealistic open systems just fall by the wayside. They're too open. The suppliers can't see a competitive advantage or a strategic purpose for such a thing. And to get a small supplier in that says, oh, I can disrupt the whole industry and I can replace, in this case, oh, I'll go in with my small, cheap solution and people will stop buying Emerson, Honeywell, Yokogawa, Foxborough, ABB, Schneider Electric, pardon me, ABB, and that sort of stuff. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. I've seen people try it in the 20 years I've been a writer in this space. Never happened. I don't see any reason why this would be any different. But I do expect, go throw something out there and just take flack, and I'll take the flack. That's okay. I know we need a discussion on the Purdue model. So the Purdue model is a hierarchical model, and it describes from the physical assets at the plant floor up to ERP, the business systems. And it describes it in a hierarchical way, and a lot of people, ISA 95 kind of follows that, but I don't see any reason why everything needs to maintain a hierarchical status in this. Like we need to design our systems to be hierarchical from level 0 up through level 4. Because of the way things are tied together these days. Everything is tied together with standards. We're moving that way. We have standard data communication protocols, or we have ways to translate from one to the next and move data, because now it's all about data. Data is data, and data wants to flow. And so we can take data from anywhere, and it could be the plant floor, it can be a human being, it can be the GPS, it can be the Weather Channel. And we can take all that data, and it just wants to move to where it's needed. And if you start visualizing a system where data flows to where it's needed, maybe you look at it and say it doesn't need to be so hierarchical. We can architect a system without kind of the older model. The older model worked fantastic for a lot of years, 30 years, I don't know, a long time. And it's not that the pieces of the model are wrong, it's just that maybe we need to start breaking our mind open and say it's services It's data flows, and all we need is like a networking model kind of thing. I don't have a picture to show you yet. I'm thinking about it, and I know a lot of other people are thinking about it. So that's just something to keep in mind, something we need to discuss. I put a note out there on LinkedIn and see if anybody wanted to discuss it. And I think we'll be talking about. So really smart people are really looking at that. It fits in the Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things and the things that we're talking about right now. So I think we're moving in a different direction now in manufacturing technology. It's all cool. The ARC forum was fantastic. Nobody talked about the president, which is fantastic because even though I studied a lot of political science in college, my major professor was ex-CIA, and so I probably got a bit of a prejudiced view from a guy with a PhD from Georgetown and years in Army intelligence and CIA behind him. And yeah, it's probably a different education. It goes with electrical engineering really well. So anyway, a little bit of rambling, a little bit of focus. Pick up my blogs. Think about the future of manufacturing technology. I'll be at a few places. I'm going next week to San Diego in the Industry of Things event. It's an Internet of Things conference. And then I'll be at ABB, it looks like, for the ABB customer event in March. April looks like I'll be going to Hanover, probably some other places. May, I think there's a couple of events coming up. So hopefully I'll see you around. At any rate, this is Gary Minchell. This podcast has been brought to you by Ignition from Inductive Automation. And have a good day.